Cats have quite the reputation for being rather independent and a bit standoffish. Folks can often joke that cats, they really don't care about anyone, unless it benefits them directly, of course, especially when it comes to food. But is that entirely 100% true? And more importantly, do cats or can cats form loyal relationships with other felines, like their mating partners and, of course, their kittens? In this video, we'll take a closer look about whether cats can truly relate to each other in this fashion and whether loyalty actually plays a large role in their world. First off, let's talk about that word loyalty and what it actually means for a cat. When we think of loyalty, we often imagine someone who sticks by us at all times through thick and thin, someone who is quite dependable and maybe even protective of our physical body and also our needs and everything in between. But animals, they don't necessarily think like we do. For cats, the word loyalty is more about bonding and spending quality time together, grooming each other, showing affection toward each other, and of course protecting their own. So, do cats build these kind of bonds with each other, this loyalty bond? Sometimes the answer is yes, but it's not always 100% the case. It often depends on the situation, the felines that are actually involved at the center of it all, and the kind of relationship they're in and the relationship they've had, and really how long they've been around and known each other. When it comes to mating partners, I think most anybody out there can answer this one. When it comes to mating partners and loyalty, no, not really. The answer is no. Unlike some animals that mate for life, that can mate for life, cats are certainly not into that type of commitment when it comes to partners. Male and female cats, they typically mate once and then that's the end of that and they move along. In fact, some female cats can mate with several males, and the kittens from a single litter can have different fathers. Once mating is over, the male usually disappears. He's not interested in hanging around with the kittens or forming any kind of lasting bond. Now, is that 100% always the case? No. Vast majority of the time, yes it is. But what about their kittens when it comes to loyalty? Do cats love their kittens? The mother, of course, speaking in this scenario, this is where things can get more on the level that we would understand with our human relationships. The mama cat, they are incredibly devoted to their kittens, at least during the early stages of life. And I've mentioned this here on the channel several times in other videos. From the moment the kittens are born, the mother is right there all the time. She feeds them, keeps them warm, grooms them, and teaches them, and also defends them from anything within the environment, whether we're talking inside the home or outside. If the cats were born outside, it's just that those basic care needs, they're taken care of all the time by the mother. And she also teaches them the skills of life. In the wild, for example, out even maybe outside of your front door, she'll show them how to hunt. And indoors, for example, she'll teach them the ways of the world when it comes to using that litter box. And for the most part, abiding by the rules that you've set in the house for her. She'll teach them what you taught her. But, of course, we all know that this bond is not forever. Usually about a month and a half, perhaps up to 12 weeks, the mother will slowly start to pull back, and then she will stop letting them nurse altogether, push them away, and at times even act aggressive towards them. The ultimate act of weaning them away and weaning him off of her. In the wild, for example, this is very important because you have to let kittens grow and become independent. Now, in the home environment, the kittens can stick around with the mom a little bit longer, especially if the mother is part of the household, but that weaning process, to different degrees, will still occur. So when it comes to loyalty, absolutely. The mother cat will remain loyal to her kittens as long as she sees fit, of course, and certainly within that, say, 10 to 12 week window. What about siblings, the brothers and sisters? We've talked about the mother and the kittens, but what about the brothers and the sisters? This is a bit tricky, a little bit more subtle perhaps. Kittens from the same litter, brothers and sisters, they can really form very strong bonds, especially if they grow up together in the house and stay together. You'll often see them side by side, perhaps their whole life, more or less. And they trust each other, they groom with each other, they play and nap. These behaviors are the ultimate sign of trust, affection, and of course, the word of the day here in this video is loyalty. In fact, some cats, some siblings, can become known as what many will refer to as the bonded pair, sort of like best friends. They'll go through life together, and in some cases, they will even pass away not long, separate from each other if they live to be very old. It's not uncommon to see that take place. Very sad, of course, but it also just goes to show how strong the bond of loyalty and love and trust and all those good things. It shows how strong that bond can actually be. But, of course, on the flip side, this is not the case for all siblings. If cats, especially if kittens are split up, for example, and then they re-enter each other's lives at a much later time where the cats are sort of having to get to know each other all over again. In this case, personalities can clash, and each cat will treat the other almost like a stranger, having to start over and get to know each other all over again. Of course, that leads us now to cats, multi-cats, cats in the home. Not necessarily brother and sister, but just cats that you've taken in the home. If you have multiple cats, you've probably noticed who cares more about the other. They may not get along. Some are sort of besties for life, and some you're still working to get them to stay in the same room for half an hour without them fighting on some level. Some cats can get along, while others can just simply have trouble and not even tolerate each other. Cats are naturally territorial, and whether or not they bond, it often depends on the early life, how they were socialized, of course, their personalities, how they were introduced, the process of introduction, and of course, if they are spayed or neutered. And when it comes to some things that you can look for to see if the bond is there, the bond is growing, I mentioned grooming earlier, cats that groom each other, that sleep tightly together, nap together. This is ultimately a sign of trust, right? Because you're not going to nap and close those eyes next to someone you fear that could be an aggressor. And what about playing and maybe play fighting with, sort of like how your cat would play with you? If you see two cats playing like that with each other, that's a sign that some trust is there. And of course, sharing food and perhaps that litter space. Cats that form this kind of connection, they often grow as partners in life, let's call it, to support each other and somewhat form what we would consider a sibling type bond, even though they aren't related in any fashion. When it comes to male cats and kittens, and this can be a bit of a funny one because the guys get the bad rap, I think sometimes. In the wild, for example, the male cat usually doesn't help at all. Like I mentioned earlier, the process is done, and then the male cat is off. And in fact, some male cats can even turn on their young. But in a home environment with that controlled setting, it can be different, especially if everybody's living under the same roof. The male cat can be very sweet and nurturing to the kittens, similar to the mother in some respects, almost acting like an older brother, perhaps. Just sort of that, think of it on the beach with a lifeguard. There's maybe not hands-on and really lovey-dovey, but they're there for support. They're watching the action, and they'll step in when they need to. So in a lot of ways, that is, let's call it tough love. They're keen to watching their young compared to some male cats who just disappear entirely. Some male cats are different, and it has to do with personality. And here again, that controlled home environment. So ultimately, are cats loyal to each other? I would say the answer is yes, but it's sort of different strokes for different folks. So much depends on the cats involved, how long they've known each other, if they're siblings, or if they're not, they're just brought into the same home environment. And as for the father, the male cat, here again, it's all about, are we talking outside in the wild, or are we talking about in a controlled home environment? But I think the word loyalty, and the way that we view the word loyalty, our definition of loyalty, I'm not saying it's impossible, but don't expect that kind of loyalty, this whole, ride or die that you've got with your best friend or with your brother or sister or even with your spouse. It can be that deep, but don't go in expecting that. It's really just more about general trust and the comfort of being able to be around the other cat without fear of any type of aggression. The more that you observe your cats, the more you'll notice if there's bonding and loyalty going on. Once you understand how your cat expresses their affection and their feelings and that loyalty, you'll realize that cats, they may not express the loyalty the way that you would, but you can tell that they're expressing it in their own unique way. With that said, to the wonderful audience of Senior Cat Wellness, what are your personal thoughts on this topic and all the little subtopics noted here today about loyalty? And what about your cat? Would you describe them as being loyal to other cats, maybe under your roof? Perhaps maybe they're loyal to another cat in the neighborhood. Other cats in your home, like I said, siblings, or just cats that you've brought in from the outside. True loyalty to their kittens. Was the father, let's call it, surprisingly loyal? That comment section, as always, it's all yours. And if you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we will talk to you later.